What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Big Five Pod, episode number 137. I'm your co-host, Kyle Morello. Next to me, co-host Jake Copestick. Cope, we've got a lot going on right now, and we've got something very, very exciting to preview, which we're about to do. But first, how are you? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was good. Small on my mom's side. Just a small group of us. Did not do turkey this year for the second or the third year in a row. Just did Italian food. So the main course was eggplant parm, which was one of my favorites. Love eggplant. Nice change of pace on the turkey, I will say. Had like the traditional Thanksgiving sides and everything. Did like a turkey breast, but it was good. Football, food, family. Can't really get too much better than that, huh?
No, that's my favorite holiday. And we also did turkey breast. We didn't do like a traditional turkey, but we had all the sides. I actually made wings on the grill. My honey maple wings. A little kind of fallish recipe. Very good. But yeah, mine too. Pretty chill. Feast week was great. And now we've got our Super Bowl coming up, Big Five Classic. We'll get into that in a second. First, we got some games to go over from this past week, including a couple Big Five games, one official in pod play, one not, obviously, in an empty in the Cathedral Classic. But first, of course, we got Cope's quick hitter. So, Cope, grab that ball. Let's run that break. What do you got?
Yeah, very, very short today. We'll just bang out a couple things. Literally, there's one thing to speak of here, and another quick one that I'll throw in. St. Joe's, Kyle, a couple staff hires they made. Last time we were out here, we were talking about how it was speculated that Joe Mahalik was going to be hired as general manager. And then that was like on a temporary basis or whatever. There's some weird language around that. He's officially been hired as the general manager for the men's basketball team. I'll go over a little bio and his duties in this role again. Previously an assistant under Steve Donahue at Penn. Of course, the son of Joe Mahalik Sr., special assistant to the head coach at LaSalle, played at LaSalle with Fran Dunphy. So basketball in his blood for sure. Reunites with Steve Donahue to be the general manager, taking over for Rob Sullivan, who's now the general manager at Rutgers. And Kyle, his duties, he's not just going to work for the men's basketball team. There's going to be a 4-person team, Joe Mahalik included, Jill Bodensteiner included, Sue Lavin, who's the general manager for the women's basketball program at St. Joe's, the 3 of them, and then they're going to create a new position and have a quartet of people working on raising NIL dollars and fundraising for the men's and the women's basketball program. So pretty unique that it's not just, hey, Joe Mahalik, you be the GM for the men's basketball team. It's a collective effort here for not only the men's, but the women's program as well. Kyle, moving on, an important one here. And I know it's a strength and conditioning coach, and this isn't a head coach, an associate head coach, even a general manager, but still a very important position in a men's basketball program. Cliff Spiller, Kyle, he comes over from one of my favorite programs, one of my favorite coaches, and Dana Altman in the Oregon men's basketball program, where he was the director of strength and conditioning for them the last couple of years. And prior to that, this is the most important because with Cliff Spiller taking over this role and taking over for Eric Lang, and we talked to Anthony Finkley, we talked to Rasheer Fleming the last couple of years, spoke very highly of Eric Lang. He's got that NBA experience. He knows what it looks like at the next level. And you look at Rasheer Fleming, how much better of shape he got in year 1, year 2, year 3. He had a 27-point double-double in the G League last night. His body looks great. And it's important to have that. So not only does Cliff Spiller have experience with Oregon and a very good men's basketball program there, but prior to that, worked for the Utah Jazz, worked for the Phoenix Suns in their G League affiliate, worked for the Sixers, and worked for the Blue Coats as well. Moving a lot closer to home, Kyle, because he's from Atlantic City, New Jersey, and he was a 4-year letter winner at Wagner College when he played there for the Seahawks. So important hire. A lot of behind-the-scenes work, maybe not somebody that you don't want a name basis, but strength and conditioning coach, Kyle, very important position. And St. Joe's, once again, going the NBA route with a guy in Cliff Spiller who not only has the college experience, but plenty of NBA experience as well. And just because, Kyle, we cover all the bases here, we make sure we touch on everybody. They did hire a new assistant director of operations. That's going to be Chris Marino, who was a grad assistant for the Hawks from 2023 to 2025 and was a 4-year student manager at Penn State for their men's basketball program when he was up there getting his bachelor's degree as a college student. So trio of staff hires for St. Joe's, Kyle. I'm going to touch on one, maybe 2 more, and then we can get in the real meat and potatoes. I said sweet
I like sweet potatoes too.
Still thinking of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Not related to college at all, Kyle. high school, PIAA 2028-2029 season. Drum roll, please. They're getting a shot clock.
Thank goodness.
Finally, high school basketball getting a shot clock. I mean, how embarrassing is it? Any game you look at, people just hold the ball at midcourt for a quarter. You know, you shouldn't go to the Palestra for the Catholic League, one of the best, if not the best high school league in the country. And place is going nuts. It's a sold out crowd and people are holding the ball at half court for 30 seconds to a minute. Should not happen. Should not happen. A league like the Catholic League and just Pennsylvania in general, so much good basketball across the state, especially in this area. A lot of kids will go D1, D2, D3. Prepare the kids for college. I mean, it's hard to even think about sometimes. Like, I was listening to Darius Nichols' presser the other day, and he's like, so many guys are new. So many guys haven't played. Ashton Walker didn't play with a shot clock last year. And it like kind of registers you a little bit that it's like this in so many other areas. But shout out to the PIAA for putting a shot clock in. Prepare these kids for college. It's a great basketball city we're in, great basketball state. Prepare them to go to college and play basketball, Kyle. Put a shot clock in. Why are we waiting 5 years to do it? What are we doing? Anyway, Kyle, I will end on this. As reported by John Rothstein earlier today, we had the players' era come to fruition last year. We had quite the back and forth from people on college basketball Twitter on if they like the players' era or not. It is going international next season. The Royal Palm Invitational, Royal Palm Classic, whatever the hell you want to call it, Royal Palm something. Kyle, we're having a college basketball Feast Week MTE in Dubai next year. Presumably for a lot of money to be played in front of very little people.
Again, I know why but like...
Yeah, the almighty dollar, Kyle, it's a shame. It ruins everything. You can't have anything anymore. You can't have anything anymore. You used to have Maui and the Battle for Atlantis and the Great Alaska Shootout. And we're going to play in Dubai. And, I've never been to Dubai before. I assume there's a whole lot to do there. Islands, it's by the water. It's a whole lot to do there. I guess, are you going to be able to attract a lot of people to these games? Money grab, going to ruin the sport. Shout out to Rick Pitino, though, for saying that they weren't going to, St. John's was not interested. That's a lot of travel, too. A lot of travel, a lot of logistics to play 3 games. Could just do it. Could do it domestically. Just saying.
Agreed.
Anyway, that's all I have, Kyle. We're going to get off on a tangent.
I was going to say, I'm not going to take the bait and rave about this because we have a jam-packed episode.
We're going to get off the rails.
We can't. And we've done it. We did it last episode, and that was fine. We'll do it again, Cope. I can't do it right now. So anyway, shout out to Rick Pitino for saying no for that at least. Anyway, Cope, we have a jam-packed episode, like I said. A little bit later, we're going to have Mike Sulkes, the general manager and senior vice president of the Xfinity Mobile Arena, on to talk about the Big 5 Classic and everything behind the scenes and the business side of things and his excitement for this tournament. Cope, he was great talking to. He had a lot of passion about the Big 5. We're not going to, spoil everything for you guys, but he had a lot of good things to say and a lot of interesting things to say. So stay tuned for that a little bit later. Right now, we're going to talk some games, though. Before that happened, before we preview the Big 5 Classic, obviously it was Feast Week, as we've mentioned. So we're going to go over real quick. Let's go over the Terry's Chocolate ESPN Events Invitational. Some of these names, Cope, are almost as bad as some bowl games. Actually, I don't know if you saw, there's an Xbox Bowl this year, replaced the Bahamas Bowl for college football. Again, not that I want to go on a tangent, but that was announced today. I think it's Missouri State and Arkansas, I don't know who it was. I forget exactly, but December 18th. Anyway, lost to UC San Diego, Temple did, which we mentioned a little bit in our last episode. They beat Princeton and then lost to Rhode Island. And then the other MTV that took place, of course, which we previewed a little bit last week, was the Cathedral of College Basketball Classic, hosted at Penn, of course. LaSalle went 0-3. Penn went 2-1, including those two playing each other in what was a wild game, which, Cope, this is the first thing I really want to dive into on this episode. And then we'll go into the other Big Five game that happened on Monday. But 73-71 final score, Penn winning over LaSalle. We were at this game. LaSalle played great in the first half. They dominated to open the second half. They were up as many as 15 in this game, or maybe 16. They were rebounding like crazy. They were shooting the ball really well. And one thing we talked about on last episode was that LaSalle's going to have to keep up with Penn's firepower. They outperformed Penn in the offensive end for 30 minutes of this game. Ethan Roberts was struggling. And then around the 10-minute mark, TJ Power hit a couple shots from three. They took out Ethan Roberts to get a breather, and they went on a run without him, got back in this game. Roberts came in, I think, when they were down 2 or 3. They didn't look back after that, and they ended up pulling this game out. Although neither team really wanted to win, Cope, because at the end, LaSalle had a chance to win with 20 seconds left, down 2. Eric Acker turns the ball over. Penn misses at the free throw line. LaSalle missed at the free throw line too with like 3.8 left. Penn turnover on the baseline because they thought they had a run on the baseline, but they did not. And then Josiah Harris missing a shot along toward the buzzer. So neither team really wanted to win at the end, but a great comeback by Penn nonetheless. Cope, you were also there. You were sitting courtside. I was up above in the media section. What did you see from down there in this one?
Yeah, well, I said that LaSalle needed to. LaSalle in their previous 2 Big Five games, they did not rebound that, John. They rebounded that, John, on Saturday. They certainly rebounded that, John, Saturday. 40-32 on the glass overall, 19-9 on the offensive rebounding stat sheet, 28-14 in second chance points, 40-26 in paint points. How about the fact they got 71 shots to Penn's 52 and 42-26 in the first half? They were great. Physicality, getting in there, rebounding, and it shook Penn a little bit. It did. It took them quite a while to settle into the game and fight back and get used to it. The physicality was great. The rebounding was great. Tips, deflections, 50-50 balls. It just felt like LaSalle was on top of everything in the first half. And how about only 2 turnovers, which has kind of been a bugaboo for LaSalle and one of the stories of their season thus far. But then the second half, they let TJ Power get going. He finished 10 of 17 in this game, 5 of 8 from the 3-point line, 29 points, Kyle. He was spectacular in this game all around. But that second half as well, he came out firing and couldn't miss to start the half. And on a night where Ethan Roberts went 3 of 14, Kyle, they still found a way to pull this one out. Different guys were scoring. AJ Levine, 5 assists, 1 turnover. Again, he was taking care of the ball. But then late in the second half, Kyle, I want to touch on what Jay Jones did. So he came in this game, he played the final 12 minutes at the point guard spot and put 7 points in, 3 rebounds. He banked in a big 3 at the end. He didn't 2 of 4 from the free throw line, but he made a couple. They won by 2. Those are important ones that he made down the stretch. But I said this when I was on with Stephen Bagel. We did a little video recap after. Penn's got some little point guards in Dylan Williams and AJ Levine. They got some quick dudes, but some little dudes. You put Jay Jones out there and you put Cam Thrower out there, and suddenly you have 2 guards that are 6'4", 6'5". And then they went to a zone. LaSalle turned the ball over 8 times and didn't shoot the ball as well in the second half. It was really a good strategy from Penn in the second half to put themselves in the zone, but put some more size on the floor as well. So I got to give Jay Jones his flowers because he was a really big reason as to why Penn won this game. But really good effort from LaSalle. Penn just made more plays. Fran McCaffrey was very upset about the inexcusable run the baseline. What happened was Ashton Walker tried to intentionally miss. I'm going to say he threw the ball off the backboard too hard because I feel like nowadays you have young kids like him that are freshmen that don't know the rule and just think you can chuck it off the backboard to yourself.
Yeah.
I think
at least off the backboard and then off the front rim, but it has to hit the rim first.
Yeah, I think that I've seen situations where people don't know, where like freshmen don't know that.
Yeah. They
just think they can chuck it off the backboard to themselves. So Ashton Walker tried to intentionally miss, didn't hit the rim. But it wasn't a made basket where they could run. But they tried to. They turned the ball over. LaSalle gets it back. They have a chance. And then Josiah Harris, who, look, that's probably not a shot that you want for him. A tough contested deep mid range on the baseline is probably not where you want him shooting the ball. But regardless, it doesn't come down to one play. LaSalle 8 turnovers in the second half, 2 of 10 from 3, less than 35% from the field in the second half. So wheels just kind of fell off for LaSalle at the end, despite them playing, I thought, a very good first half. They controlled the tempo, controlled everything. But TJ Power, man, he's going to be one of the best players, if not the best, in the Ivy League. You saw him do it against St. Joe's. You saw him do it against Drexel. You saw him do it a couple times this weekend. This guy is the real deal, and he's going to turn in, I think, quite a few performances like this, not only in the rest of non-conference play, but in Ivy League play as well, Kyle.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. He kind of had that eye of the tiger that Ethan Roberts had in that Drexel game in the first half, where he was just like, all right, I'm gonna take over right now. And he made, I think, 4 straight threes at one point that he took. Don't think a lot of them even touched any of the rim. Like, he was phenomenal. I also want to give a shout out to Luke Salute too, who was a big part of that comeback. He played a lot in the second half, especially down the stretch. They had a closing lineup for a while, or at least this lineup for a big stretch was TJ Power, Cam Thrower, Jay Jones, Luke Salute, and I think Levine was in there for a while too. So those guys contributed a lot down the stretch, especially while Ethan Roberts was on the bench and struggling a little bit. And I think that time on the bench helped him, honestly. And I asked Coach about that post game, and he could tell he was tired and his legs weren't there. That's why he wasn't hitting his shots. Got his legs back. I think he had 5 straight points once he came off the bench when Penn took the lead, and they didn't look back. So really good game from Penn, a really good game from LaSalle too. They just, the execution down the stretch was poor, and it did them, and that's something that they're going to have to learn, as they go on this season. Cope, one more game to go over before we preview the Big 5 Classic. Obviously, we had the game to decide the matchup of the Big 5 Classic, and that was Temple at Villanova on Monday. This was a good game for, a good 26 minutes, roughly. Temple was winning into the second half. They were 39-35, I think it was at one point earlier in the second half. And then Villanova ran away with it. Temple had some bad turnovers, some bad shots. They just really couldn't find anything in the second half, and Villanova kind of ended up rising and taking over. Caden Lewis was great, 12 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds. Tyler Perkins, 19 points. Bryce Lindsay had 13 points on 6 of 13 from the field. Aiden Tobias and Darian Ford were the 2 leading scorers for Temple. I thought Ford kind of forced some shots a little bit, and you can touch on that as well, but they were good. They were not at their best, and I think that ended up kind of, contributing to Temple. I mean, listen, they only scored 56 points. It's not gonna work against most opponents, let alone, the talent that Villanova has. So a lot of things kind of contribute to Villanova taking over there, but at the end of the day, they ended up making more shots in the end. I think that was kind of something we were concerned about for Temple going into the game, and then ended up proving true toward the end. So now, we'll get into the matchups in just a second, but Cope, neither of us were unfortunately at this game, both watching on TV. Shout out to Dave Sims, by the way, who's the Yankees radio broadcaster. I obviously do not like the Yankees, but I do recognize that he is a great broadcaster, was once with the Seattle Mariners TV broadcast. So great broadcast there, but game was good as well. Cope, what did you see?
Yeah, it was not an aesthetically pleasing first half by any means. It didn't feel like anybody could make a shot. Temple did not make a 3 in the first half and went down only 1 point at halftime. And then, like you said, they had a lead early in the second half, and they were playing well. And Aiden Tobias had a monster dunk in the first half. Like they were holding their own on the boards. And then the second half, the wheels just kind of fell off for him here. There was a spurt where Caden Lewis had a steal. He made a couple plays in a row, and you listed off his stats, Kyle: 12 points, 5 boards, 8 assists. The most important of those is one you didn't mention: 0 turnovers.
0 turnovers.
0 turnovers. He was spectacular, not only scoring, but on the fast break, making good decisions, getting into the paint, finding open shooters, making good decisions. He had a kick out 3 to Devin Askew. I thought was a pretty big momentum change in play. he's getting better in front of our eyes, but man, he's really, really good. And if this team's going to have a shot to make the NCAA tournament, Kyle, he's going to be a big reason why. He was great, and he was really the catalyst that broke the game open for him. But another guy that's not going to get as much shine is Duke Brennan with all the, Tyler Perkins making 5 threes, scoring a game high 19 points. You had Bryce Lindsey 6 of 13. Duke Brennan, look, he grabbed 8 rebounds, but it was how many fouls this guy drew. Do you know how many, without looking, do you know how many minutes Baba Dorodola played in this game before he fouled out?
I didn't see him out there a lot. I would say 18?
12.
Wow.
He fouled out in 12 minutes. It's like every time the shot goes up, it's like it's not even that Duke Brennan's got magnets in his hands. It's like he's got a magnet in like his chest, and he's got great positioning every time the ball goes up. And it was not just him getting rebounds. Look, 8 rebounds. I think if you credit the plays where he kept the ball, there was a foul on the floor and he kept the ball on that side of the floor, he probably would have had 15 or 16 in this game with just effort plays, getting to the ball first, getting good position, and then drawing a foul. And Temple starting center again played 12 minutes in this game. So his physicality was great, even if it didn't show up in the stat sheet, because I think that 8 rebounds is a little less for what Duke Brennan's impact was on the game. But in the second half, Kyle, Temple just, the shot selection, maybe not what they wanted to. It just wasn't as crisp, as clean, the ball movement and the way they were running things in the second half. Turnovers, I mean, obviously you have Baba that ends up bowing out of the game after playing only 12 minutes. But Temple played, I thought, well for 26 to 28 points. And then it was a spark from a Caden Lewis, who, again, he made a couple plays in a row. He made a bucket. He got a steal. And the game just kind of broke open for Villanova. So I saw some good here for Temple, but it's a shame that, you look at the score and it's like, damn, they lost by 18 despite playing really well for maybe 60% of the game, Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a moment there in the second half where I was like, wow, are they really going to, is this going to come down to the wire? Are they going to have a chance to, upset Nova and get to the Big Five Classic Championship? And the water got turned off. And, not that Nova's like an insanely good defensive team. Obviously, we've talked a lot about their 3-point struggles, which are 3-point defense struggles, which surprises me that Temple didn't make a 3-point shot in the first half, because they let up 41.5% from 3 going into this game. The water just got turned off for Temple. Bad decisions, both in passing and in shooting. Foul trouble, like you mentioned. Obviously, Baba playing 12 minutes isn't ideal anytime ever, especially against someone like Duke Brennan, who's just physically imposing and a great rebounder. So it did not end up working out for Temple. It did work out for Nova. They will be playing in their first ever Big Five Classic Championship, which, Cope, why don't we preview our Super Bowl right now and move on to that? Because yes, ladies and gentlemen, this Saturday, December 6th, tomorrow, from when you're seeing this, is the 3rd annual Big Five Classic, featuring in the championship Villanova versus Penn, in the 3rd place game St. Joe's versus Temple, and in the 5th place game Drexel versus LaSalle. Cope, why don't we start there with the 5th place game? We'll work our way back up. Drexel versus LaSalle. These two teams obviously were in a pod. The first 2 years, they played some tight games. Drexel playing in their 3rd straight 5th place game. LaSalle was in the championship last year, 3rd place game the year before. Obviously, the Khalil Brantley, half court heave and double overtime game winner. This will be, I think, a pretty close matchup. Both these teams have had some struggles so far this year. Both play at a very slow pace. Both play pretty deep. LaSalle definitely a little deeper than Drexel, but both play pretty deep. Defensive-oriented teams that try to rebound the basketball, second chance points. I think this will be a really, really fun matchup. I am going to let you get your prediction and your analysis off first. But Cope, what do you think about this first game of the Big Five Classic on Saturday, 2:30 p.m.? It's 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m.? Did I get that wrong? 2, okay. I know it's 2, 4:30, and 8.
2, 4:30, 7:30.
7:30. I feel like they've changed it every year. Cope, what do you feel about this 5th place game?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tight one. I think this is going to come right down the wire. Ken Pom has it as a 1-point game, so obviously I have to go with our Bible here. 67-66 Drexel win is what they have it at. I'm going to say that's accurate. Would dare not go against Ken Pom. But look, offense has not been pretty for these two teams. Drexel last night, not a great second half. They were up 13 at American, who Penn had lost to. Drexel went down there, squandered a 13-point lead, unfortunately, at halftime. But a couple things here. LaSalle's bread and butter is they want to rebound well. 27th in offensive rebound rate. Drexel top 100 in defensive rebound rate. They also, Drexel 66 in offensive rebound rate themselves. They have the size to go up with LaSalle here. I think another thing, too, is you have to look at the health of LaSalle. They got beat up last weekend. I mean, you're looking at our LaSalle team that Noah Collier played Friday, didn't play Saturday, played Sunday. So he's still working himself back in. But Bowen Beatty had a cast on his hand. Jerome Brewer and Justin Archer sat out. You still have Jaden Johnson and Truth Harris that still aren't in. Like the injuries are starting to pile up. And guess what? If you're down Brewer, Beatty, and Archer, those are three guys that are going to play a lot for you. And that's three guys that provide a lot of size inside. And Justin Archer was really good in the Penn LaSalle game. So I see that there's some injuries that we're probably not going to know of until, Kyle, we get there and we see who's in street clothes and we see who's playing. But I'm going to take Drexel in a close one because I think the size that they have with the Garfield Turner, with Martin De La Porterie, with Ralph Akuda, with William Garcia Adston, I think that foursome is enough to kind of keep LaSalle at bay as far as rebounding that John goes. So I think if they can control that, I'm confident in that. The thing is, Drexel doesn't get to the line much. LaSalle free throw defense, they don't really allow teams to get to the line all that much. 14th in free throw attempts to field goal attempts on the defensive side. Drexel 266 in free throw attempts to field goal attempts offensively. So probably not a lot of free throws going to come from this game from Drexel, especially because we know that LaSalle is going to want to drive the ball, get to the free throw line themselves. So a physical game, a scrappy game, a gritty game. I'm going to take Drexel in a close one. They'll have the bodies to match up and not get pounded on the glass. And Kyle, how about a nice storyline? When we talked to Zach Spiker in the summer, he was on staff at West Virginia when Darius Nichols was being recruited and he came on his official visit. So you fast forward 20, 21, somewhere in there years later, these two meet in the Big Five. And are going to be on opposite sidelines of each other. All roads lead back to the Big Five, Kyle. Pretty cool storyline there. I will take Drexel in a slugfest, gritty, maybe not exactly a pretty one. And for the third straight year, Kyle, the Big Five's newest member in Drexel, yes, they're playing in the fifth place game. They will not finish last. I'll take Drexel in a very close one.
Fair enough. And all roads do lead back to the Big Five. We always say that. Cope, going into this episode, I was going to oppose you and pick LaSalle because I think with the roster that they normally would have, not even just including some of the injuries that, we haven't seen this year. This isn't even including Noah Collier and some of the other guys who haven't played yet this year. With the, 10, 11 guys that they did have, I was going to take LaSalle because I think they're rebounding, while Drexel is a good rebounding team, I think LaSalle maybe slightly better one. I was going to take them there with that. I think Drexel's offense really hasn't been all that great. Not that LaSalle's has, but I just think with the style of plays, even though close matchup on paper, I think I was going to go slightly with LaSalle. I can't right now with the injuries. I don't know who's available. And, that's part of the deal in college sports, right? Like, I know they're trying to change that a little bit, but like you said, we're probably not going to know until we walk into the building at 1 p.m. On Saturday and find out who's playing in this game. So if a few other guys are available, if Noah Collier's playing, if Justin Archer's playing, a couple other guys you mentioned that I can't remember exactly off the top of my head right now, of course, but if they're maybe not fully healthy because they have not been fully healthy all year, but if they're having more guys available than they've had since the start of the season, I'm going to go with LaSalle, but because I don't know that at this very moment, I'm going to take Drexel in a close game. And according to our Bible, like you said, Ken Pom, they have it as a 1-point game. Could very well seeing that. And if either team gets to 70, the first team to get to 70 will win this game. I don't know if it'll happen. Ken Pom says no. But it's going to be a very low scoring game. There's two very slow paced teams, like I said. A lot of rebounding. I think will create extra possessions for each team. But then again, I don't know if they're going to be able to capitalize on them the way that some would. So I'm gonna say a very close game. Right now, I'm picking Drexel, but I am saying, and maybe it's a cop out, if Noah Collier plays, if Justin Archer plays, I'm going to go with LaSalle, and I'm sticking to it. Cope, game number 2, St. Joe's versus Temple, a classic Big Five matchup, a former A10 conference matchup, and one that I'm actually very excited to see. I think people kind of were obviously hoping for a holy war, as we talked about this last episode, in the championship. Kind of almost had it in the third place game, but Temple slides into that third place game, plays St. Joe's. I think these two teams are also fairly even in where their standing is right now. Ken Pom also has this as a 1-point game in favor.
I think it's same score too, right?
77-76. The other one was 67-66.
Okay.
These two teams have a little more offensive firepower than the other two, so I think that's fair. But again, a 1-point game that Ken Pom says is a Temple victory as of right now. I'm going to go first here, Cope, because I let you go first last time. As much as I think Temple does a lot of things well, like take care of the basketball, although they didn't against Villanova. They shoot 3 at a decent rate, although they didn't really against Villanova. There's a lot of things to like about this team. I think I'm going to go with St. Joe's in this matchup, though. I like the guard play of St. Joe's, obviously. They've been inconsistent, with Deuce Jones and Jaden Glover-Toscano, but I think they match up well against Temple guards. And I know Temple, at least offensively, I think Temple will be able to hold their own against these, and Derek Simpson as well. With Jordan Mason, Darian Ford, Tobias, and I guess is, more of a wing, but include him in there as well. I think Finkley matches up well with Tobias. I know he, didn't play one game. He came off the bench in one of the last games. They have a common opponent already. They both beat Princeton, and 2 close games there. So I think this will be, again, a close matchup. I'm going to go with the team that has more experience winning in this format, though. And I know some guys weren't there for that. I know Deuce Jones was obviously on a losing end last year to the St. Joe's team. I think if they are both playing at their best, I think St. Joe's is the better team. So I'm going to go with St. Joe's in this one. Cope, what do you say?
Well, I need to figure out who's correct here, because I was looking at, this is the most played rivalry, by the way, the Big Five.
Yes, correct.
I see Temple tweet out today, this is the 166th all-time meeting. I look at St. Joe's record book, and it says they played each other. This would be 162. I got to figure out who's correct. So that's besides the point. I got to
figure that out.
Got to figure out what's going on there. But as far as on the court goes, and not in the record books here, a couple stats I want to point out. As much as we talk about LeBron frames, we talk about Darian Ford, and we talk about Aiden Tobias. Temple's offense, Kyle, 8th in turnover rate. Jordan Mason's done a very good job being the lead guard here. So the Jordan Mason, Deuce Jones clash is going to be something to look out for. A couple other things I want to point out. Temple gets to the free throw line a lot. St. Joe's is going to have to defend that well and not allow them to get to the hole. This is a St. Joe's team that doesn't shoot the ball well, but this is a Temple team that actually shoots the 3 ball pretty well, Kyle. They're 22nd free throw attempts to field goal attempts, 75th overall nationally in 3-point percentage. So St. Joe is going to have to defend the 3-point line. They haven't done a great job of that through a couple games, Kyle. 258th nationally in opponents' 3-point percentage. Also, like this Temple offense, they can score. You got some guys that can hurt you, and we know they can score. The Temple defense, though, Kyle, I think there's a lot of points going to be scored in this game.
Yeah.
Because this Temple defense gave up 90 points twice while they were down in Disney World, 308th in efficiency overall, 338th, they don't turn you over, 304th in effective field goal percentage. And guess what, Kyle? Temple was hurt by that when a Babatunde Dorado only plays 12 minutes in a game. And that happens for him. Not saying it's totally his fault, but hey, when you don't have your starting center out there, that's an issue for not only your 2-point defense, but your defense overall. But just not a unit that's taking the ball away from people that's been particularly good. So I think a lot of points in this game. It's kind of hard, Kyle, because I see some shakiness in both teams here. Why don't we'll make a handshake bet on excuse me. We'll make a friendly wager here on the game. I'm going to take Temple. We'll shake through the Zoom here. I'm going to take Temple here. Joe's defense hasn't been all that great, Kyle. You saw him gave up a bunch of points to UNLV, like gave up a bunch of Virginia Tech. It's tough. I feel like I'm splitting hairs, and there's stuff I like and stuff I don't with both teams. I'm going to take Temple here in a really close game.
Listen, they're very
they've taken care. They've taken care of the ball. I've seen Temple take care of the ball. I feel like the whole season is going to kind of be a work in progress with Deuce Jones and Jaden Glover and Derek Simpson. So in a very close one, I'm going to take Temple here. Stuff I like on both sides. I think, look, maybe an X factor in this game, Kyle. A guy whose name we haven't called a lot, who had a really good season last year because Joe's is playing smaller. I think this is a game where Justice Ajabo could have a really big impact. If a Baba Tunde Duradola gets in foul trouble, or just if Jemai Feld is in there, or they put size on the floor. If St. Joe's puts size on the floor, I think the brute strength and defensive prowess of a Justice Ajabo can be big in this game for the Hawks. So maybe a guy to look out for. Perhaps if Temple wants to go small, maybe you go big with Justice. Maybe you give up some on the defensive end if they put him in pick and rolls, but I think that's a guy that could have an impact. In a close window, Kyle, me and you, we'll figure something out. In a wager to be named later, you'll go with Joe's, I'll go with Temple.
We'll figure it out. And listen, maybe we can talk about beforehand, and then we'll announce it on Spaces, which we have yet to tweet about as of this very moment. But we are going to be doing a Big Five Classic preview Spaces with Aaron Bracey on Press Row, 1:30 2 o'clock p.m. before the start of the LaSalle Drexel game. So maybe we'll have to figure out what our bet is before then and announce it there. As of this moment on Thursday night of us recording this, though, we have not quite figured that out yet. But I also think one real quick thing, a matchup to look out for, Desir Haskins versus Gavin Griffiths. I think that is a kind of X-factory
whoever
matchup.
He guards, whether it's him or it's Tobias,
yes.
I think Desir Haskins is going to be massive, especially on the defensive end.
I think that's an X-factor in this game as well. I think those are the two guys, at least, that I didn't mention. You obviously mentioned Gavin Griffiths too, but I definitely want to give Desir Haskins a shout-out because he is a talented player in his own right. He's been playing a lot of the four for St. Joe's, and whether it's Tobias and whether it's Griffiths matching against him, I think probably in the likelihood it will be more Griffiths, but I think that's a good matchup, especially for Griffiths on the offensive end, Haskins on the defensive end. I think that's one to look out for too. I think they're going to be battling out all game, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Cope, that leaves us with the Big Five Classic Championship between Villanova and Penn, two teams making their first appearance in this new format's championship, and not one that we thought going into the season. Obviously, I think a lot of us expected Villanova to get in, but Penn 2-0 in their pod in the Big Five, beating St. Joe's, beating Drexel, and they're coming off a 2-1 Cathedral Classic, as we mentioned. Crazy comeback win against LaSalle. They beat Mary Mac. They ended up losing to Hofstra, which, Coach, shout out to Hofstra. They've looked pretty good so far this year. They're going to be among the contenders in the CAA, but not a great performance from them. I think, third game in 3 days, though all of those teams in the Cathedral Classic could say that. I think after the LaSalle game, it kind of wore on them a little bit. Maybe that was the emotional high of beating Big Five team coming back from that. But I would love to say that I think this is going to be a close game. I don't think it actually will. Ken Palm has this as a 16-point Villanova victory. I think if you're a betting person, the sports books will probably have this around 15, at least from what I saw in an article from Jeff Nyberg today. Shout out to Jeff Nyberg from the Inquirer. He's talking about Kevin Willard and potentially Villanova's position in the Big Five going forward. So it's definitely something that we would like to have him on and ask him about at some point. So shout out to Jeff Nyberg. Go read that article if you have not yet, ahead of the Big Five Classic this weekend. But regardless, there's one thing, Cope, that I think, first of all, I do think Villanova will win this game. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned that before, but the one thing that I think could turn this game upside down, obviously Villanova's got more talent. just based off of their, recruiting acumen, transfer acumen. I know obviously Penn has a former 5-star in their own right, and they got a great ball player, Ethan Roberts, and some other complimentary guys, as we've talked about. The one thing, and I think you all know where I'm going with this, is the 3-point shooting for Penn. Penn right now, 14th in the nation in 3-point shooting at 40.3%. Villanova is the exact number, if Ken Palm would stop making me sign in, is 358th in the nation at letting up 41.2% from three. That's the one thing that I think and obviously the shots have to be made, whether or not they're going to be open to take, which they will get their looks in this game. Statistics say that is going to happen for TJ Power, for Ethan Roberts, for Michael Zanoni. AJ Levine even knocked down a couple, I think, in the or at least he's knocked down at least one the last couple times that I've seen him play that we've both been there, Cope. So they're going to get looks. Cam Thrower as well. Can they hit them consistently against this Villanova team? And can that be the main source of offense against Villanova? Because Villanova is going to score. They're going to get their points. Penn defensively isn't great. 299th in defense in the nation. So Villanova's going to score. Is this going to be the way that they're going to be able to keep up and hitting the 3-point shots and getting these open looks? I definitely think it's possible. I don't think in the end it will make the most difference, because I do think Villanova will I think the talent disparity there is a little too heavy, even though love Fran McCaffrey as a coach as well. Obviously, he's coaching in some big leagues, some big moments, as has Kevin Willard. So I don't think the discrepancy there is all that much to write home about. But I do think the talent disparity is something there. And despite Penn's 3-point shooting, despite Villanova's lack of 3-point defense, I think that could be the one thing, like I said, that keeps Penn in it. I think Villanova will pull away at the end, though. And B, Big Five Classic champions for the first time in the new format. Cope, what do you think?
Well, I know we talked about this last night. I do want to throw this out there, though. I have a stat here, Kyle, because Kevin Willard and Fran McCaffrey, to my knowledge, have faced off 11 times dating back to the MAC when Siena and Iona were playing, when Fran McCaffrey was the head coach at Siena and Kevin Willard was at Iona. Kevin Willard, Kyle, is 4-7 against Fran McCaffrey. Now, 6 of those losses came while he was at Iona. And he's also beaten Fran McCaffrey 3 straight times when he was at Maryland. Was 3-1 at Maryland, 1-0 at Seton Hall, 0-6 as the coach of Iona against Fran McCaffrey. So he is on a bit of a hot streak. But as far as the game goes, Kyle, yes, the 3-point defense is there. Another thing we got to touch on is that Villanova is the best offensive rebounding team in the country because they have the best offensive individual rebounder in the country in Duke Brennan. And Kyle, you don't even have to mention stats, any of that stuff. Just the fact of what we saw Saturday with LaSalle putting it to Penn on the boards. And with what we saw with LaSalle, the physicality being an issue for Penn for a large chunk of that game. This is a guy that's going to give you problems. And really, when it comes to Penn, the 2 guys they're playing are Augie Gerhardt and Dalton Scantlebury. That's Duke Brennan's a lot for them to handle. And if Augie Gerhardt gets in foul trouble, then you have a true freshman who's going to be guarding a 5th-year player in Duke Brennan who gobbles up more boards than anybody in the country. So as much as the perimeter is going to be huge, that right there could really put the nail in the coffin for Penn if they're not able to rebound as a team and keep Duke. Look, you're not going to stop them, but contain them a little bit. You just can't let them run loose and get 18 rebounds or something like that on you. You can't have him control the game like he did against Temple. And if you have some guys get in foul trouble, well, that if you got to play small, that could really be a problem. Also, Kyle, revenge game once again for Tyler Perkins, who for the 3rd straight year, third straight year
playing in this matchup.
Yeah. 2nd straight year going against his former school. Still, there's Augie Gerhardt, Nicholas Polanowski, Johnny Walter on the Cam Thrower on the other sideline. So it's still going to, even though it's a totally new staff, there's still guys he's going to want to go up against. I expect a big game from Tyler Perkins, building on that 19.5 3-pointer outing he had on Monday. He's going to be big in this game, but it's the point guard spot, Kyle. It's the point guard spot that's going to determine. It's the best. Caden Lewis could be the best player, and TJ Power, the 2 best players in this game, in my opinion. And if he's going to control the pace, not turn the ball over, and allow this offense to hum and be pretty efficient as they have been all year, then I think Villanova is going to win this one. Although I think Penn can keep it close, because if Penn is making their threes, and here's another thing too, Kyle, this is a very bad free throw shooting team for Villanova.
Yeah,
it could play a factor if this is a close game and there's a lot of people there and it feels like Penn can get back into it. That could be a factor, but I just see the offense and especially Kyle, the rebounding. Like I said, Duke Brennan. Look, that LaSalle team crashes the glass. There's a reason why they're top 30 in the country in offensive rebound. But Villanova has the best offensive rebounder in the whole country. They're number one because of Duke Brennan, who's number one in offensive rebound rate and number two in defensive rebounding rate. So Penn is going to have their hands full. And if they had an issue with LaSalle, well, literally there's nobody better than this guy you're going to see Saturday. There's nobody better than Duke Brennan in the country at rebounding. So that's where I see the game being decided. We can talk about the perimeter matchup as you touched on, but rebounding, Kyle. Penn is going to have to be physical. If they have to send five guys to the glass, I guess you're going to have to, because you can't let Duke Brennan completely take you out of what you want to do and control the game. So I will take Villanova. I do hope it's a close. I think it will be a little closer than the 16-point margin that Ken Palm is saying, or the 13-point margin, whatever it may be. I will take Villanova in a close one. And for the first time, Kyle, and much to the chagrin of the St. Joseph's fans, the St. Joseph's banner is coming down, and the Villanova banner will be hung up at Xfinity Mobile Arena.
Well, listen, that banner's coming down regardless because St. Joseph's playing the third place game. But yes, much to the chagrin of St. Joseph's fans, if it is Villanova, they're not going to like to see that banner being hung in the Xfinity Mobile Arena. Cope, which brings us to our next guest, interview with Mike Sulkes, the GM and Senior Vice President of Xfinity Mobile Arena. One of the, as he'll explain, one of the main engines in getting this event to come to life, being the reason why this event exists in the first place, and coming together with the schools and everybody to kind of make this happen. Was a great conversation, and I don't want to hold it up any longer with a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, how the Big Five Classic works. Here is Mike Sulkes, General Manager and Senior Vice President of Xfinity Mobile Arena. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, we are now joined by Mike Sulkes, the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Xfinity Mobile Arena, of course, the host of the Big Five Classic in just a few days. Mike, pleasure to have you. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love the setup behind you with the Flyers, even though I'm not a Flyers fan myself, but with the locker and everything like that, it looks pretty cool. So Mike, how excited are you first and foremost for Saturday with a third edition of the Big Five Classic?
Yeah, I mean, the Big Five Classic, I'm in my 17th year here at Comcast Spectacor, and hosting the Big Five Classic is arguably, my favorite event we've ever done for a variety of reasons. And so I'm so excited for Saturday. I'm so excited of the progress we made, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But we are thrilled. Everyone here at Comcast Spectacor and Xfinity Mobile Arena is absolutely thrilled and excited for Saturday.
Mike, before we get into all the progress you make, I want to kind of tear the curtain back here and see what goes on to putting in an all-day event on like this. So if I understand correctly, this took many years to come together and to ultimately bring to fruition. So if that's the case, when it comes to dealing with and collaborating with the schools, with finding a sponsor, with finding a day where you can hold this event that works with the school schedules, that works with the pro team schedules and everything else you're having at Xfinity Mobile Arena, just how much work and what needed to get right, what needed to align for this all to happen and come to fruition?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, full disclosure, and I've said this before, we've had conversations of this concept dating back over 10 years ago. So it took a long time to really put this together in its current form. And really, the key was the six universities, their athletic directors being open to change, being open to trying something new. And it really, long story short, a few years ago, we re-picked up the conversations after a little bit of downtime. And credit goes to the athletic directors, all six of them, that they really, were open to change. They were open to some new ideas. And I think that's the key, right? And I mean, right now, it's a seminal moment for all college athletics, right? I mean, the change in every sport, particularly the revenue sports, football and basketball, it's a different era. And I think they all realize that in order for the Big Five to, not only survive, but grow and restore its place in the college basketball landscape, but the Philadelphia sports landscape, it needed a change. And collectively, it was really a collaborative effort. And I know that's kind of a buzzword, right? Collaboration, but that's truly how it happened and how it came together. Because there is no perfect solution for anything, right? Like you can look at any sport, any league, whatever it is, you can probably pick apart something that's not perfect. But really, this format, what it does is, it gives the schools a little more schedule flexibility. It gives them the opportunity to play meaningful games early in the season. And I think most importantly, it creates this triple header on Saturday, which is really a showcase of not only the six programs, but Philadelphia basketball as a whole. And to answer your question, a lot goes into it. And, literally, I mean, when I say it took 10 years, it took 10 years. And, when it finally came together, the concept, and we were going to move forward, everything else really came into place. And I think there were a couple moments along the way, like I knew this would work. And like, I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up going to Big Five games in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I knew what was there. I knew this was a sleeping giant. And when we came out with the concept publicly, the instant reaction from the corporate community was outstanding. And that's really where I knew where, you see our great partners, starting with Toyota, who's the presenting sponsor of the event. They saw it and they knew that what the Big Five means to this city and where it should be. And once we had that support and that financial backing, we took off from there. And it really was a long, process. But like I said, we are so proud of where we are and more importantly, where we think we can still get to. But yeah, the number one key is collaboration and having those relationships with the athletic directors, and being able to work with them, talk about what do you need, where are your concerns, what can we do to make this work? Because like you said, you're never gonna have a solution that's perfect for all six programs, but they all know that it's for the greater good that this thing is the way it is. And I think, again, just working with them on everything, right? From the date, from the sponsors, from the ticket sales plan, to the student athlete experience, to the student experience, the fan experience. It's been a great process working with them over the last few years, and it's really come together great.
So I got to throw a follow-up in there before I get to this year's event, because if you grew up going to these games, going to the Palestra, going to these games in the late 90s, give me some of your favorite memories. Did you grow up with a favorite team, a favorite player? Like you're very passionate about this, and we love that. But what was your experience growing up on the Big Five?
Yeah, so my dad actually worked at Temple in the late 90s and early 2000s. So I went to a ton of Temple games, both at Liacouras Center and at the Palestra. And by far, my favorite Big Five memory was March 2002, double overtime in the Palestra, Temple versus St. Joe's. Lynn Greer absolutely went off. The Palestra was packed, sold out. It was half St. Joe's, half Temple. And I was in high school at the time, and I went with my dad and my brother. And I've been blessed. I've worked in sports for a long time. I grew up going to a lot of sporting events, whether it was any of the four major teams here, college sports. That game is at the top of my list of experiences. It was special. It was indescribable what the Palestra was like that day and during that game. And, I literally still have the ticket in my desk. And it's like a little reminder for me of like what we're doing this for, of getting it back to that and getting it back to, I mean, you would have thought that was the Super Bowl in that building on that day. It was just incredible. I'm obviously I'm at kind of a loss for words of what it was like. I was happy. I think the Inquirer a year or two ago did like the top 10 Big Five games of all time. And that was towards the top of the list. And I was like, it had to be, because it was one of the greatest sporting events I've ever been to. So that is by far my favorite Big Five memory.
That's awesome. And me and Kyle, so first of all, we're two Temple alums, so we love hearing that, hearing the owls in there as well. But I go to Palestra every year for the Catholic League Championship game, because if you want the corners full, you want that full atmosphere. Unfortunately, at the time, at least in today's day and age, like that seems to be the only time you can get it. But there's nothing like it. When the cathedral's packed and the corners are full, there's nothing like a packed crowd at the Palestra. But Mike, last one before I kick you over to Kyle here. We're now heading into year 3 of this event. We heard you last year. You were on 97.5. You were doing your media tour. You were allowed re-entry. There's affordable tickets for everybody. You have a bunch of free tickets that go out to all the schools. And if those students want to, if their school's playing in the 5th place game, they want to stay all day, you have designated sections where you can allow them to stay all day. So you have a whole lot going on. But going into year 3, is there anything that you can share with us that you're doing differently? And maybe not even so much you're like, hey, we need to improve on, but things that you want to add in there that you think could enhance the experience?
Yeah, I mean, we made a lot of changes from year 1 to year 2, and all those changes are staying. And you mentioned them. Like, number 1 is accessibility and affordability of this event. This event is for everyone. It's for the students, alumni. It's for kids that are just getting into the sport of basketball. It's just for basketball fans, even if you didn't go to a Big Five school. So tickets now start at $30. Every single ticket is for all 3 games. And last year we did start allowing reentry for everybody, because listen, it's 3 basketball games, right? It's a long day, and especially say your team's playing in the first game, but you want to see the championship game. Head out, go to the parking lot, tailgate, head to Stateside Live, head to Live Casino, go to Center City, have a great meal, have a few drinks, whatever you want to do. So really, what was it about was creating an atmosphere, right? We did, creating this atmosphere of all 6 fan bases in one building, people coming, going, staying, everyone, dialing in for the end of every game. Like, it's all about creating that atmosphere and just creating a special day for everybody. And yeah, everyone has different wants, right? Like what the 21-year-old Villanova student wants to do is different than the Penn alumni from 30 years ago wants to do. So we try to tailor our event, like all events. We try to make sure that there's options for everybody. But yeah, accessibility was paramount for us, was making this event affordable, to the public, and not going after every single dollar. Listen, the business is important, right? That's just a fact of college athletics these days, that there has to be a good financial benefit for the schools, but at the same time, it's bigger than that, and it's about creating that atmosphere and creating the memories, like the one I was just talking about that I was lucky enough to have over 20 years ago.
Yeah, and that kind of actually segues into my next question a little bit, which is about the general topic of attendance. So obviously, the Wells Fargo Center, or excuse me, not the Wells Fargo Center anymore, the Xfinity Mobile Arena is, the biggest basketball venue in the city. And being bigger than the Palestra and all the other colleges, it maybe can seem like a tougher of a challenge to fill it up and get kind of the atmosphere that you were describing, in your time when you went to the St. Joe's Temple game at the Palestra, some of the other, venues around the city. And it seems like it's improved the first 2 years with attendance. Obviously, sometimes matchups help, and sometimes there's things that can drive more attendance than others. But in general, how can you continue to bring in more fans, whether it's from the actual dedicated fan bases that are playing in each of the games, or the general Big Five and Philadelphia fan that wants to see, a great day of hoops?
That's a great question. I mean, there's a lot to that, right? It's obviously, and number 1 is just creating a fun environment. So that's why, the both end zones of the lower bowl are free tickets to the students. And that's the number 1 key, is when you get 2 full or pretty full student sections, it doesn't matter how big your arena is, it's going to feel fantastic in there. And, we've been lucky to have that. And the student turnout has been great. And when you get, 2,000 students on one side and 2,000 students on the other going back and forth, that's what is special, right? And that creates that college atmosphere in a modern venue. And then, like I said, what the modern venue allows is also for those folks that, aren't students that maybe don't want to sit on a bench for 10 hours, they can have the comfortable seat. They can have the nice amenities and, all what they want when they come to an event. But growing this thing as how do we get more people in here? Again, it's just continuing to build on what we've already had, creating this special environment so that when people either watch the game on NBC Sports Network or watch the highlights, they're like, we can't miss that next year. This is like the new thing in Philly. And our goal is that continues in perpetuity long after I'm gone and hopefully into the new arena that we're going to be building with the 76ers in the 2030s. Like, we want this to be a new version of a great Philadelphia tradition that in early December on Saturday, it's going to be the Big Five Classic down the sports complex, and you have to be there. And again, whether you're alumni or just a basketball fan or a kid getting into sport, this is going to be something you don't want to miss. And again, it just goes back to, creating that atmosphere. And then the other piece of it, and what this event hopefully does over the long run, is build the programs to where they should be, right? In a perfect world, all 6 programs are towards the top of their conferences. They're competing for March Madness bids. And because really, that's when this thing will really, really take off, is when you have all these teams where they should be and where they've been at various points in the past. And you get those great matchups between great basketball teams. And that is one of the keys to this, is that what this event does is it guarantees all these programs at least one game in Xfinity Mobile Arena. So you're Drexel, you're LaSalle, the schools they're recruiting against, that's a major advantage, that they have this game with this atmosphere, that you can guarantee that to your potential players, that this is something that's part of being a part of our program. This is a benefit of that. And that's really, I think the key, right? We'll do our part in creating this amazing atmosphere and fun atmosphere, but also help these teams get back to where they need to be. And like I said, there's a financial benefit, there's a recruiting benefit. All 6 schools, you bring recruits to Xfinity Mobile Arena now. Like, during the summer, all times of year, we'll get texts, hey, Penn's got so-and-so. Can we get this up on the board? LaSalle's got so-and-so. And that's key for them as they're building these programs. Obviously it's a time of transition for many of the programs. 4 of the 6 coaches are new this year. So, it's a little bit of a transition time. But yeah, I think all of that goes into my ultimate goal is to set the attendance record for basketball in this arena. We want to get over 20,000 people at this event. And we're going to get there. And it's all those things go into it of how eventually do we sell out this place.
Absolutely. And to your point about the players, like Cope, and you can attest to this too, when we've been at press conferences the last 2 years, whether it's for this event and also some of the other events where you've had other Big Five teams as well, specifically, this year with Drexel and LaSalle, the players talk about it and they get asked about it, and that you can kind of tell the passion that some of them, most of them, have never played on a stage like this before. And, chances are may not, again, depending on where they go in their careers. So to play on an NBA floor is a pretty incredible experience, like you said. I want to ask you one more thing about, you mentioned some of the sponsors, and obviously last year you guys named the Tri-State Toyota Dealers Association as the title sponsor of the event. So this is the second year of a 3-year deal. One, how good of a partner have they been so far to you guys? And 2, since, the Big Five Classic has started and now that you have this presenting partner and some other partners as well, has there been more interest garnered in wanting to, put money towards this event and put on a good show?
Yeah, our sponsorship number has grown every year. And I can't say enough about Paul Muller and Bob McCormick and the whole Tri-State dealer group at Toyota. They were They and still are so supportive. I mean, and this is one of the key pillars for them in the market. They're supportive of all Philadelphia sports. And when this thing, again, took off, by the way, they also sponsor the women's side as well. I mean, that's how invested they are in the Big Five. They're fantastic partners. And, me and Bob were making some rounds doing, TV a few weeks ago, and they'll all be here and on Saturday. And without them and without all of our other supporting partners, we wouldn't be here, right? Again, that was like the launching point, was when the corporate community stepped up and said, yeah, we want to help. And we want to get the Big Five back to its rightful place in Philadelphia sports. And again, get all 6 programs to where they should be in their league. So they're fantastic, and they're really a key pillar in all of this.
So, Mike, touching on what you said about your arena in this event being a recruiting point, like, absolutely that is true. We had Zach Spiker on from Drexel, who said, like, he had one of his assistants research how many teams in the CAA play multiple games in an NBA arena for obviously the Big Five Classic, and then the event that they just had, the Autumn Invitational, when they were there. And then when we had Steve Donahue on, and he was talking about the new iteration of the Big Five, like, yes, the Palestra's great and everything, but playing in an NBA arena means so much to the kids that he coached, and being able to play in an atmosphere like that. So, no, absolutely, you're right with that. I want to ask you about that, because the last couple of years, we have the Autumn Invitational this past year, Syracuse, Drexel, Penn State, LaSalle. The year prior, Drexel and Penn State played. The year prior, you had Penn host Kentucky down at the then Wells Fargo Center. So when you think of events like that, even if it's third party or you have a one-off game like Drexel and Penn State had, like, how important is it for you to be a partner with the 6 Big Five schools in the city, even away from the Big Five Classic, and hosting them for games?
It's critical. And it goes back to my point that I just made of, like, we're not going to sell out the Big Five Classic unless these teams are where they should be, and where they're, again, competing for March Madness bids and doing all that. So supporting them outside of just the Classic is critical for us. And listen, we are in the event business. We love hosting all events, and again, the Big Five is special to us. We are stewards of Philadelphia sports. Obviously we own one of the major teams. We have a great partnership with the Philadelphia 76ers, and it goes beyond just owning those teams. We're stewards of the sports and all the sports. And again, growing the sport, growing the Big Five, it's paramount, and it's all connected. And, like I said, you talked about the recruiting. Yeah. Like, again, when you're Penn and you say, we got Kentucky next year in an NBA building, that's a big deal. And we're going to continue to do those, and we're going to, continue to support all the programs. Obviously we have a great, obviously we're Villanova's second home away from Finneran, which we're very proud of as well. That's going to continue. So yeah, it's all connected. And like I said, it goes back to having those relationships with the athletic directors, with the coaches, trusting us with the games, right? Knowing that we're going to create a great experience, not just on the court for their athletes, but off the court too. They walk in, those locker rooms are done up. They look great. They got all the amenities that an NBA player would have. Like the whole time, from the time they get off their bus till the time they get back on their bus, they're experiencing what it's like to be an NBA player. And that's the key. That's really the key that we strive for.
Want to ask you a question about the arena now. Obviously, you just underwent the name change to Xfinity Mobile Arena. But at the time when the new iteration of the Big Five was announced, me and Kyle were both at the press conference. You toured everybody around after, showed them all the renovations you had. But it's very, very impressive when you look at the club level, the mezzanine down below with the clubs on the event level of the floor. But, just arena in general here. How good has Xfinity Mobile been as a partner now that this is so new? And how have all those renovations been perceived by the fans and the patrons of the place?
Yeah, I mean, the renovation was $400 million over the course of many years. And, we're a new arena. I mean, we basically took pretty much every single level down to the studs and rebuilt it up. And it's a great modern arena to come experience. Whether we like to say, whether you're coming in the front door, which is the fans, or whether you're coming in the back door, which is the athletes or artists, it's a great experience. And our new partners at Xfinity Mobile, we have unbelievable new Wi-Fi that just actually got added to our parking lots as well. We heard that people like to tailgate in our lots, but so we added the Wi-Fi out in the parking lots and also upgraded inside the arena as well. Listen, again, modern venue connectivity, right? You see how people watch games these days. They want to share where they are. They want to look at stats. They want to look at highlights right away on their phone. They need to be able to do that. And that all goes into, again, creating that modern event experience that people expect these days. You remember, it wasn't 10 years ago, if you went to an Eagles game or you went to another major event, your phone would just stop working. Like it just wouldn't work. And like, you can't have that in 2025. So like, again, Xfinity Mobile and the whole Xfinity team has been great in upgrading everything here, and making this a first class venue in every single area.
I got one more college basketball question just in general. Absolutely. Then I'm going to kick you back to Kyle. You're going to host the NCAA tournament again this year. And just in your tenure I got to get used to calling it Xfinity Mobile Arena. I haven't slipped up quite yet and called it Wells Fargo.
It was a long time. I'll give you a couple passes. Don't give me a couple passes.
Not that me and Kyle are old by any means, but I grew up on the Wachovia Center, so that even took some getting used to. But you're hosting the NCAA tournament again, just in your tenure at Xfinity Mobile Arena. You saw Dunk City, Florida Gulf Coast. You had St. Peter's. Me and Kyle were in the building for that upset. What goes into bringing an event like this to a basketball city like Philadelphia?
Yeah, the NCAA process is quite extensive, and how the NCAA works is usually anywhere, and they switch it up, anywhere from 2 to 4 year cycles. They'll put all their championships out to bid at once. Everything from March Madness to rowing, to women's volleyball, to men's volleyball. So they bid out all their championships. And we always put in bids for multiple events. We bid for obviously men's basketball. We bid for women's basketball, which we are hosting in 2027. We're hosting the March Madness Women's Super Regional in 2027. We bid on NCAA wrestling, which we had this past March, which was an absolutely incredible event. We bid on Frozen Four, which we hosted in 2014. And those bid processes are, fairly extensive, right? You're working with the city of Philadelphia. You're working with other stakeholders, the hotels, the schools who's going to be hosting. And you file a bid that, has to wow the NCAA, from your facility to the hotels. The city is as much of a part of the bid as the arena. Where our airport is actually a major advantage for Philadelphia in these bids. It's like, hey, listen, you can get from the airport to the arena in like 10 minutes. That's a huge advantage for us when we're putting in these bids. And we have great hotels. We have a great convention bureau that hosts when people come in from out of town and you go into Center City when we're hosting, something special is happening, whether it's the street banners, the hotels are all decked out. So that, again, going back to that buzzword of collaboration, those NCAA bids require collaboration between our team, the school who's hosting, the city of Philadelphia, the convention bureau. There's a lot of people involved. Again, the hotels, can't leave them out. That all are involved in those bids, and we've been pretty consistent that we've gotten the men's basketball pretty much every single bid cycle since I've been here. With that, we're very grateful for that to the NCAA. And those events are special. And like, to your point, and I always say this to people because I don't know if people appreciate how lucky we've been these last few NCAAs that we've had to have the St. Peter's, to have Dunk City. And then even the regional in between that was like 4 Blue Bloods in a regional final, with the UNC Notre Dame regional final, which was incredible. Like we've gotten really lucky too with some of it. But yeah, those are great memories and special events.
And that's March for you. You get special memories when it's March. So definitely. And we're hoping and most likely will be back this year. And we're very excited for that as well.
Awesome.
Couple more questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here. obviously we can't talk about the Big Five Classic and be the Big Five pod without asking you about the actual basketball games themselves. Now, we've previewed this already, so this is at the end of the episode, but what are your feelings on, these games and which ones you excited for? I saw that you got your master's at Penn, so do you have a little bias there and rooting for them to bring home their first championship in this iteration of the Big Five? How excited are you for the actual on-court basketball?
Yeah, I'm excited. And, like I said, my dad worked at Temple. I got my master's at Penn. But I in my current role as like the business director of the Big Five Classic, I'm completely unbiased. And all I root for is great basketball. Like that first year, those 3 games that we had that first year here, could not have been any more perfect, right? You had Drexel upset Nova. Like the first game here in the Big Five Classic, you have one of the biggest Big Five upsets of all time. The second game with the LaSalle buzzer beater, like it was crazy. And then, the third game, St. Joe's ended up pulling away at the end, but the banner ceremony, and that was another, I talked about moments when I realized we had something, seeing St. Joe's clip that banner on and seeing the reaction to not just the players, but all the folks around the St. Joe's program, Don DiGilio, the legendary athletic director, and so many others, there were tears in people's eyes and literally. And like, that's what I get excited for. And I get excited for great basketball. I get excited for those moments like that. And I'm excited for the matchups this year. It's great to see Nova in the final. Again, we're in year 3. We've already had 5 of the 6 teams in the final game. Like that's what you want. You want some parity. You want some unpredictability. Listen, one of the criticisms when we came up with this was, is this going to be the Nova Invitational? Like, why are you doing this? And that hasn't been the case at all. And, I think we, again, talk about the championship game, what Fran McCaffrey has done at Penn in such a short time. Incredible. Now going up against, the Power in Villanova. Again, you had that classic Big Five matchup in the second game with St. Joe's versus Temple. Again, I'm excited for that just for the reasons I explained. And then even the first game, Drexel LaSalle, again, both programs building up again. Drexel's the entire team is new, so they're building back up new. That's what I get excited for I hope that it's great basketball and good games. But yeah, there's a lot of good storylines going in. Again, all these new coaches, new players, that are going to be experiencing this event for the first time. And again, a lot of these programs, there's hope and I'm excited to hopefully see that take off. That's what I get excited for.
And that makes 3 of us, as we've mentioned on this episode, and we always mention that this is our Super Bowl. So we are super, super, super excited. But one more question that is not related to the Big Five, but we ask all of our guests, and you are no different. So we're going to ask you the same thing.
All right.
You're a Philly guy, and you've been, working there, Comcast for 17 years. So I'm sure you've been able to experience some different foods in the city. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Where is your favorite cheesesteak place?
My favorite cheesesteak place. Well, I have to say, I grew up out in Lafayette Hill. So I grew up going to D'Alessandro's, which was about 7 minutes from my house. So that's always, and D'Alessandro's was different back then. It was, you could sit at the counter. They had the pepper bar. It was like a different vibe than what it is now. I would say now my favorite cheesesteak is John's roast pork.
Okay, good answer. Good answer. Cope, that's probably the one that people don't ever say.
I think that's the first one we've had.
At the first or second.
No one says that?
Everybody says D'Alessandro's.
Everybody says D'Alessandro's. We get some Angelo's, which is ours.
I thought I was going to give the obvious answer with JRP. No. I thought it was going to be boring.
I'd have to look back. I think one person has said it in their top. I don't know about their actual number one, but we have to look back. You might be the first one though.
That is the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia.
And guess what?
I had to shout out my childhood spot. I had to shout out my childhood spot.
Fair enough.
Right on. It's a popular one.
It is a very, very popular one. That line is no joke. And even driving there like we have to and finding parking is even less of a joke. So,
It wasn't always like that.
no, I'm sure. I'm sure. But Mike, thank you so much for coming on, talking Big Five Classic, Big Five hoops, and obviously everything with the event. We're very much looking forward to it, as we said, and it's cool to kind of see some of the behind the scenes and some inner workings of it. With this being now year 3, but it still feels like a new event. But kind of feels like home in a way, like it's something that's going to be established for a long time, and we're super grateful to have your time and
and thank you to you guys, because you guys are a part of this, and you guys talking about the Big Five, promoting it, being into it. This is what we need, and so I appreciate your guys' passion, and you guys are a part of us, all of us growing this, and so I really appreciate you having me. I appreciate you talking about this. And let's get people excited. Let's get people down here, and let's have a great day Saturday.
Absolutely. Cope, any other final thoughts?
Yeah. Hey, very much appreciate your time. Hopefully, I'm going to try to get there early. Hopefully I can say hello to you while I'm down there.
Please stop me if I see you. I'll do the same. I'll be walking around all day. Awesome.
Well, appreciate your time, and hopefully we see you Saturday for a great day hoops.
See you then, guys. Thank you again.
See you again. Thanks everyone tuning in, and we'll see you Saturday.